The treaties officially recognized your power and independence as nations. The Europeans understood that they could not force their laws or way of life on the people who were here long before they ever arrived. They understood that you had rights.
This is just a small clip of the powerful experience of reconciliation. For over 300 years, Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples have been in conflict. So, the Ancaster Village Church organized the blanket exercise to promote healing among these two nations.
Given that it was the Canada 150 celebrations and everything about that, and we were having a discussion about residential schools to begin with, the idea of celebrating Canada for us needed also to include looking at some of the not so great parts of our history. So residential schools, how we've treated Indigenous people was a big part of that. So we thought this would be a good thing to do, the blanket exercise, and then to invite the whole community to be a part of it with us.
Participants stood on blankets to represent the Indigenous peoples living on Turtle Island. Leaders read aloud the history between the Europeans and Aboriginals. The blankets and people were removed one by one to symbolize their land that was taken away.
It gets you. Like you know, obviously of European descent, and I'm a descendant of the European invasion. There's just no way you can go through this and not feel some kind of personal responsibility. Obviously, I can't go back and fix anything, but I can certainly, ideally, be a part of moving forward and reconciling some of this stuff. So it's hard to hear, but it's the right thing to hear. I mean, any kind of change always starts with education.
And the purpose of this exercise is to help people understand and sympathize with the past of Indigenous peoples.
Well, this is my second time experiencing the blanket exercise, and the first time and this time again, the history, the actual details of what happened to Indigenous peoples of Canada moves you to the core. We were never taught this in school. A lot of what we heard about, especially residential schools, happened in my own lifetime, and I didn't know about it growing up. When you hear the stories of tainted blankets with smallpox given to wipe out First Nations, trying to strip them of their culture, their identity, taking children from their families. 7 generations of First Nations children didn't grow up in a family model, and it helps me really understand why there's so many issues, and it makes me more empathetic and sympathetic and want to hear more of their stories and more of their realities.
During the exercise, leaders walked around to pass out Kleenex to wipe their tears. Those tissues would then be burnt in a fire as an offering to their creator.
I think that's very powerful to capture those tears. It's a ceremony that I'm sure is very meaningful.
After the blanket exercise, participants were given the opportunity to reflect, to truly comprehend how they felt about the history of Indigenous peoples and hear each other's thoughts.
I think it helps you internalize, and shared experience is always a good thing to do in community, and to hear one another's perspective helps what you've heard go even deeper. The first time I went through it, a colleague of mine said, I grew up in Saskatoon. There were First Nations kids on my street. He said, it didn't hit me till tonight why they weren't in my school. And he said this with tears, and we all sat there and went, you know what, you're right, this happened in our generation. Why didn't we know about this? Learning and becoming informed of the true history will help people become more sympathetic and more, I think, create more desire to want to bring healing and to want to be active and intentional in bringing that about.
For Hamilton Life, I'm Amanda Pope.